Okay, I'm doing this video for shits and giggles basically, 'cause I felt like really no one actually cares about this shit, but I wanted to talk about, um, Jim Moriarty and my characterization of him. And I think it's important for me to like get my thoughts out there, and talking to myself makes me look crazy, even though it's 11:48 and I'm alone. I, I just talk to myself. Anyway, um, so the first thing I'd like to say is the BBC gym versus other gyms. And my gym is not exclusively Andrew Scott's Moriarty, although it's extremely inspired by him. It's my own take on the character, because I take from BBC, but I also take from Hound of the Dupervilles, The Life and Times of a Criminal Genius, and there's another one, but I didn't like it very much, so I don't take very much from it at all. Um, so you can see in Moriarty, um, in the BBC version, I mean, in every version, he's a villain. He's the literary villain, in my opinion. But, in Moriarty's, in Andrew Scott's version of him, he's very human. Even the actor has pointed out that there's a certain desperation to him. And I think the key to understanding Moriarty's character is that he is human. He is deluded with ideas of grandeur, but he is human. Because that he's flawed like a human, and he acts like a human, and he has the same motivation as humans despite the idea that he's better than human. Um, so I feel like a lot of people, especially in roleplay, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing because honestly, it's pretty necessary in roleplay, but a lot of people reduce him to a two-dimensional villain as someone who's just evil and just sadistic, and a lot of people play him as a rapist and a serial killer, which obviously he's been responsible for several deaths, but we only know for certain he's killed one person. Um, I think that when you reduce him to only being evil, you take his character and smash it flat when really it's a multi-dimensional character, and it could be very exciting to explore that character. Um, and people complain when you play Moriarty as something as more than just a villain, even though everyone knows the key to a great villain is they think they're right. They don't think they're evil. Although in Jim's case, he probably does realize he's the bad guy and he wants to play that part because everything's a fairy tale and a game to him. Okay. Next thing. Jim's childhood. I've seen a lot of people um give Jim a really terrible childhood. I'm talking sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. Oftentimes one of his parents is dead and his other parent beats him, or his parents are deadbeats, which probably it does explain some things. But I don't go for that route. I gave my Jim a very mundane childhood, like completely ordinary. He grew up with three brothers, or yeah, three brothers. Um, he was Catholic. His parents were more or less normal. His dad had some criminal record, um, shotgun wedding, but other than that, I mean, they treated him well. Uh, but the only real thing with his childhood that he could really complain about, I think, would be his father taking his name and giving it to each of his brothers. So there's James Luke, which is my Jim, and then there's James Timothy, the Colonel, who's younger than him by 7 years, and then there's shoot, James. It's he's dead in my head canon, so I just remember his first name is James, and it's James Matthew. It's James Matthew, James Matthew, which is the youngest, and he's dead, and each is younger by 7 years. So sorry, two brothers. And his father, also James, did that because he didn't think Jim lived up to his expectations exactly. Um, let's see, what else is there? I feel like his childhood was extremely normal, and that would attribute to his obsession with being entertained because when you're when he was young, clearly anyone up to his intellectual level would have treated him like a child, and anyone up to his physical level would have been below him and not even worth recognizing to him. So he would have felt very isolated and very bored all the time. Um, I think he has a very strained relationship with his family, with his brothers because they stole his name. With his dad and his mom are dead at this point because that's what happens when people get older. Um, his dad drowned. His mom had cancer. Uh, he paid very good health care for his mom, by the way. Not really because he loved her, but more because she did feed him and clothe him, and he felt that there was a debt there. Um, the next item on my list, okay, is Jim as a psychopath. And I quote around psychopath because I feel like this is one term that people like into like one flat definition, and it's not. I'm not an expert in this stuff. I'm not. I read the Wikipedia page and a couple other pages on the internet, so bear with me. But he psychopathy is I could read you the definition, but I'm sure you could go look it up. You lack certain moral and sympathetic and empathetic reactions, so you're not necessarily evil if you're a psychopath. And for a long time, I was really hesitant to let him be a psychopath because it has such connotations. But I think he is a psychopath in a way, and not in the way that people take him as like just insane. Because although he is kind of insane, I mean, yeah, he's definitely insane. Uh, he's not evil exactly. He's everything's a moral gray, and that's how the world works. Um, so my final point, and I think the most important point, as I touched on before, is Jim is a human being. So every human being has one motivation in everything they do, one main motivation. I mean, obviously, things interlock and stuff, but there's one main driving force and one main goal, and um, Jim's is always himself. It's always himself, and inside that, another layer to that. See, here's himself, and then underneath that is not being bored. He is obsessed with being entertained, with being engaged. Um, he will always have himself as his number one priority, and I think because of that, he'll do a lot of things which people would declare out of character because he would not want to be alone. First of all, he wouldn't want to be lonely. He's desperate for companionship, even though he pretends not to be. I mean, you see it when his interactions with Sherlock. He's so sure that Sherlock is the person that has finally matched him intellectually, and he's just a big disappointment. Um, Not because he's not mentally up to the task, but because, um, well, Jim is obsessed with being extraordinary. Sherlock is really more, um, he's accepted his role. Oh shit,